All information given in this episode is for educational purposes and should not be tried prior to consulting a licensed physician and or certified state or accrediting bodies. We encourage all listeners to research, talk, and make all inquiries to all of the important professionals and governing bodies before acting on any information heard on the De La Fit podcast. Any action taken by any listener is done by and under their own omission and action, whether conscious to the results positive or not.
Tuned in to the De La Fit podcasts, 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health, all in one podcast.
Salutations and proclamations. It is I, it is you, it is us, it is we. Together we make up the digital family that is the De La Fit podcast. I'm your host, Philly's #1 son, aka the Body Alchemist, Sun Moon Bay, bringing you another podcast excursion. Welcome everybody back to the 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health that is the De La Fit podcast. I am so glad for everybody that is able to tune in and come back. Man, we're still in this situation. That's right. The world pandemic is still going on, at least currently as I am recording this. And I hope many of you are doing as best as you can. Most of us are still practicing social distancing, keeping 6 feet apart when you're outside and at the same time staying in the house. As I've said before in my previous podcast, we are under a ordered sit in. Basically, we're allowed to go outside, but we're not really to travel around in groups or do too much gathering. Stick to groups under 10 unless it's family and things of that nature, and you still want to limit yourselves to being in a very close proximity to each other as we're being told right now. There's so many things going on out there. It's so hard to tell what to do, what not to do. I recently was looking online and I was watching somebody's Instagram story, and a young woman was saying that she was out just jogging and a man pulled up in his car and he rolled down the window and he was like, excuse me, miss, I don't mean to disturb you. He said, but are we allowed to do this? And she was like, allowed to do what? He said, allowed to exercise. She said, yeah, you just have to stay far away from each other. You know, we have to practice that social distancing. And it's a shame because with all of the fear that's going on with this, with everything that's taking place, many people still don't know what to do or how to handle this. Not only are we still timid on how to handle the actual social distancing rules, but it's also coming to a shock to many people. I myself am particularly a homebody, so I don't mind distancing myself from individuals. I mean, I pretty much stay close to my friends and family anyway. I'm not big on, no new friends or anything like that. I'm in my Drake mode. But a lot of other individuals, they are social. They're big social people. I have friends who are really outgoing and into being social. So for this is a very big mental change for them, and it's taking its toll on a lot of individuals. But what about individuals who are also dealing with mental health issues, PTSD, anxiety, chronic depression? How do these individuals handle the social distancing? Well, I have a guest that's going to talk about that. Amanda Webster. She come to us to speak about what we can do to practice mindfulness within our social distancing. Amanda is a mind-body wellness practitioner as well as a DDP yoga instructor, and she is graciously come here to have this conversation and open it up to help all of you out there who may be having an issue with this social distancing that we're dealing with. And believe me, it's something new that many of us have to get used to. But you know what? To stay safe, we have to do what we have to do, right? So stay tuned. We're going to get ready to get into this. We're going to learn some new things. We're going to uplift our spirits, and we're going to make you feel good. So stay tuned. It's the De La Fit Podcast. De La Fit Podcast is sponsored by Mountain Made CBD. Mountain Made is changing the CBD game by offering a line of high-dose CBD tablets at an affordable price. Their products are THC-free and third-party tested for accuracy, cleanliness, and potency. Their products, which ship nationwide, include Build for CBD saturation, Boost for precision titration, Recovery for rest and rehab. With 9 years experience in hemp and fitness, Mountain Made's founders are focused on creating a quality product to help those who live an activated lifestyle. Check out www.mountainmade.life to find out more about how their products can help you crush life. Remember, their products ship nationwide. Go check out their website today and follow them on social media at MNTMADE. I started using Mountain Made's Build CBD tablets to help me with the injury in my elbow. And let me tell you something, not only is the injury subsided, but now I can do push-ups and I'm back to bench pressing. So I encourage anybody who's interested to look up, check out Mountain Made and all their products. I think you'll be glad you did. What's going on, everybody? It's Philly's number one son. Listen, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's a creation tool that allows you how to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a stunning podcast in one place. So listen, if you want to be like me and have your own podcast, go to anchor.com. That's anchor.com.
You're now tuned in to the De La Fit Podcast.
Welcome back to the 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health that is the De La Fit Podcast. COVID-19 and the coronavirus. We've been dealing with this probably for about now, say 4 weeks. And when I say we, I mean us as the entire world. Some of us have been dealing with the lockdown procedures and the stay-at-home portion of it sooner than others. This is something that many of us are new to, something that I know myself am new to. And the conversation needs to be held. For us, we are practicing something called social distancing, something that many of us, again, are not used to. This is for our safety, and while many of our government municipalities force this for our own physical health, what are the mental health points that we need to focus on with this as well? I know for myself and many others, remaining busy is something that's very important, but what about some of the individuals out there, some of you out there who are not used to this, used to being more social? Depression, anxiety, especially from the social media, can set in. What about individuals who live with anxiety even before this situation, who live with depression? These are things we need to think about even more now. My special guest, she's going to help answer these questions. She's going to talk about some of the things we can do to keep ourselves in a more positive state. With me right now, Amanda Webster. Amanda, how are you doing today?
I am doing awesome. How are you?
Doing pretty good. I mean, I'm remaining busy, doing these interviews, doing workouts, keeping busy, doing my taxes, which I got a horrible return on. So, we're doing what we need to do to keep our mind and our bodies active, just doing things to keep our spirits up. Amanda, do you mind if I call you Amanda?
No, that's fine.
So let's talk a little bit about you, the reason why you're here. Give us a little bit of your background, what it is that you do for everybody, because I unfortunately did not introduce that part of you. So I want everybody to know what it is that your background is, your major is in, as well as what you do.
Yeah, so I absolutely want to start with my profession. I'm a mind-body wellness coach, and I aim to bridge the gap between mental and physical health. So I work one-on-one with clients to help them discover what it is in their lives that might not be the healthiest habits, that are leading them to be less than their healthiest versions of themselves. And I'm in the process of developing a program that walks people through how to be that healthiest version of themselves. With that being said, I think the more important part in this is a more personal level of why I got to that point. And there was a time in my life where I didn't feel happiness. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel the need to be social particularly, and I did isolate myself. So from that perspective, I very much know the dangers of social isolation from the things that we might be experiencing as we go through this process together as a community, as a world, that it is very important to maintain our physical and mental health during this time. This is actually probably the most important time that we could be focusing on these things, and I'll go into that a little bit in a minute. But in 2018, I almost took my life in a Canadian hotel room, and I felt that intense isolation. I felt that intense loneliness, and I don't want anybody else to ever have to go through those struggles. So I hope that through this conversation, and you're right, it is a very important conversation to be had. I hope that through this conversation, we can offer a little bit of insight to people on how they can cope with this distancing, this isolation in a healthy way, and come out of this healthier and better than having gone into it.
Absolutely. As you said before, the feeling of being alone is one thing, but to have all of the nuances are surrounding you, the anxiety that's going on, the media, all of the things that's taking place, it can be a bit much. I mean, it's a lot for any of us to deal with, but for those who are dealing with other mental health issues, maybe PTSD, like I said, anxiety, depression, chronic depression, there's so much that we really need to focus on in these times. I mean, because the virus is overshadowing everything. I mean, everything at this moment. You wake up in the morning, virus. You know, you look at the TV, virus. You know, exactly. You know, you open the closet, virus. What happened? You know, I mean, not to trivialize this because it is serious. The actual fear of the unknown boogeyman itself, what is it going to take place next? You know, how is it going to affect us? Can be so impactful. Which leads me to my first question. The media has a huge effect on how we process and relate our emotions in general. How do we best remain in control of our own mindset and not let fear and panic take over?
That is an excellent question. I was just watching a video that was produced by one of my favorite comedians on YouTube, and he turns on the news and it's just, don't go outside today because you're going to die. And I feel like that's kind of the nature of this, is people are starting to panic, and we see that with the compulsive buying and over purchasing things.
All the toilet paper.
Yeah, all the toilet paper, like it's suddenly gold. And I'm sitting there going, you know, that's not even the necessity. I understand that you have this need for control right now because that's how human beings process panic and anxiety, is we have a need to control our surroundings. And the interesting thing about that is it's an illusion. We have this illusion that we can control so much of our reality, but the truth is that we only have control over our next thought, which dictates how we're going to choose to experience the moment or the event at hand. So to answer your question in short, the biggest thing I've been suggesting to people, it is very important to stay up to date on the latest developments and stuff of the virus and of the suggestions from the government and from our own communities and whatnot. But schedule short times to do this. I have been maybe 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, either checking the news, checking social media, whatever. The biggest suggestion I can make is to not inundate yourself with this all day long. One of the biggest problems with this distancing, with this staying at home, is that it's leaving us more exposed to this, because a lot of people are already experiencing, I hate to say this word, but addictions with social media, with their phones, with electronics and whatnot. So they're constantly exposed to the bad news, to all of the fear mongering. And if we're constantly sitting there exposing ourselves to, and now the virus is doing this and they're closing the borders and they might do this, and all it's going to do is create anxiety. The best thing that we can do, because the only thing that we have control over, as I said, is our next thought, our next action, how we're going to respond to this pandemic and to this crisis. We can't control what the news is going to say. We can't control the next thing that happens with this virus, but we can control how much we're exposing ourselves to the anxiety that's coming with all of this news and all of the updates. I mean, there's YouTube channels that are having literal minute-by-minute updates of the news on the coronavirus. I assure you, we don't need that. And if anything really drastic happens right now, like if something catastrophic happened and we had to stay in the house and the world was going to burn and the sky is falling, they do have the things on our phones. Well, they'll send us emergency updates and emergency protocol if it was that big of a deal. While it's important to stay on top of this and to stay educated, it's important to do that within bounds. So again, I suggest scheduled short times to check on current events. If you do spend a lot of time on social media, I might encourage people to consider, there's a browser extension that you can get for Facebook, if Facebook is your thing, that actually blocks your feed. So it just pops up with positive quotes. So if you do want to get on and stay connected to your friends and family, because obviously that's very important right now, is staying connected, you can do that without having to look at all of their, oh my God, here's the news, and oh my God, I'm freaking out, and oh my God, just the constant anxiety and fear. That's not what we want to expose ourselves to right now. And the more we can avoid that, and the more we can put out the positivity and the encouragement, the better we're going to fare getting through this situation.
So here in Philadelphia, because I'm located in the East Coast, the mayor just recently gave us a sit-in order. I think that's what it's called. Basically, it's like, don't leave the house unless you have to. And if you're gonna leave the house, basically it's saying like you can walk out in the park, things like that. You don't be in a large group. It's really, really, I think, pretty fair. At the same time, it's very protective. The local government is encouraging us to practice this social distancing for our physical health. What kind of impact does this have on our mental health, as well as for those who suffer from particular mental health issues?
Well, lack of social connection actually heightens health risks as much as, this really shocked me when I learned this, as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day or having alcohol use disorder. So if you're identifying yourself as lonely, if you're lacking social connection, that can have a huge impact on your physical health. And if you are someone who already struggles with anxiety and depression, it can exacerbate the symptoms of those disorders. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One, we already talked about, is you're more exposed. Now you're at home. There's not a lot there are lots of things to do, but our kind of go-to things are, we're going to either binge TV shows, we're going to get on social media. That kind of tends to be the go-to of our generation. And right. Exposing ourselves to that constantly is going to create more anxiety. It's going to increase the risk of depression, just because even without all of the bad news, it's been proven. They've done lots of studies that social media increases depression and it increases anxiety. So even if you don't have the disorders, it's going to make you more susceptible to developing the disorder. So that is a big issue. But also, when we're not connecting, when we're socially isolating, be it self-imposed or in this case, almost government-imposed, we're lacking encouragement from maybe our family or our peers or the groups that we associate with. And this can come from a lot of different places. For some people, it's religious and spiritual groups. For some people, it is, the group that you go to the gym with. For some people, it might be a language learning group or a student association. There's a lot of different options for that, even just your friends. But when you're lacking the encouragement of these groups, it's really easy to slide into unhealthy habits, be it social media, be it smoking, be it overeating, be it not taking care of your body as far as exercise and stuff goes. It makes it a lot easier to fall into those unhealthy habits when we lack encouragement. And on top of that, we're being exposed to all of these things, and we're doing all of these things like trolling on social media. that's making us more depressed. And the catch-22 in that is when we're more depressed, we're going to be more apt to eat unhealthily because we want comfort food. So we've told ourselves that is French fries and pizza and chocolate and ice cream and whatever other gross things that people are into these days. But we do fall into those habits to try and comfort ourselves. We get on social media because we've told ourselves, oh, I just need to be comforted. I just need to feel connected. And the ironic part about it is it's actually really isolating. The more we spend time on social media, we're sitting there thinking about, oh, well, this person's getting to do this. This person has this. This person is feeling this. And we're basing these judgments and these assumptions off of a freaking post or a picture. We're seeing that little tiny piece of their day. We're not seeing when they stubbed their toe and screamed a whole slew of profanities. We're not seeing when they got in a fight with their spouse. We're not seeing when they accidentally yelled at their kid. We're not seeing when, they got upset or cried. We're seeing their highlight reels, and we're comparing that to our behind the scenes. And that's not healthy on any level. People that have anxiety and depression and PTSD, this is a very, very, very important time to reflect on what's going to be best for the situation, what's going to be best to combat the symptoms of these disorders, and particularly not exacerbate them. That's the important thing, is we don't want to be making things worse right now. And I like to say there's a difference between, let me begin by saying there's a difference between action and control. So I've noticed, obviously, that many people are wanting to control the situation, and that's not possible. But when you're feeling anxious, the antidote to that is to take action. So be that working out, be that, making a positive decision for yourself, be that reading a book, be that just taking a bath, having a cup of tea. It's completely understandable that we need to take action to combat our anxiety and to combat the fear that's surrounding it. It's a very real fear. Let me just say that the anxiety and fear we're feeling surrounding this is completely justified. I mean, it is very understandable that people are feeling these feelings, and I don't want to downplay that or tell them they shouldn't. But let's just work together to see what we can do to handle them in a positive way, to handle these feelings and emotions in a way that's going to be conducive to getting through this as individuals and a community. The rates already of depression and anxiety and suicide, I mean, every 12 minutes in this country, someone takes their own life. The anxiety and depression that's triggered from social isolation has really concerned me in just wanting to make sure that everyone knows that there's somewhere to turn right now. There's someone to talk to right now, even though, I know that a lot of therapy offices even shut down during this time, and that's kind of scary because it might seem like, oh my gosh, we don't have any place to turn if we're having concerning thoughts or we're having too much anxiety and we don't know what to do. I just want to encourage everybody that even during this time, there's definitely places to reach out, whether it's to someone personally like me. The suicide hotline is still running. So there definitely are a lot of options to combat that anxiety, even if it is getting intense.
You actually made a point in dealing with those facts. In the United States, just last year, one of the basic facts was on average 120 Americans died by suicide each day. That's 1.4 million Americans who had attempted suicide. So the numbers are staggering. As much as I don't want to think about it, it is our responsibility to think about it. And as you said, have some type of action, because it hasn't stopped. If you understand what I'm saying, in 2020, things take place and people are still feeling and dealing with mental health issues. For a person that's dealing with depression, knows they're dealing with depression, knows they're dealing with anxiety, PTSD, or any type of mental illness, what sort of steps should they take in these times? Based on the social distancing, they might feel they can't come out the house. How can they reach out in a proper manner, in an appropriate, positive manner?
Well, I think there's two really important things to look at there. And one is again, the action is the antidote for anxiety. What can they do for themselves? And the number one thing I've been reminding people is this is the absolute most necessary time that we need to be taking care of our bodies to take care of our minds. Number one, because if you're not taking care of yourself physically right now, it's lowering your immunity. So let's just take a moment to reflect that that is putting us at more risk. But if you're not taking care of your body, it's only creating more anxiety, because if you're not getting the proper nutrients, if you're not getting the proper food, the proper rest, the proper water intake and stuff, all that's doing is throwing off. It can throw off your serotonin levels. It can increase cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. So you're doing yourself a disservice by not giving your body and mind the best chance possible right now to combat this stress and anxiety and to combat this social isolation. I'd actually learned that lack of social connection can actually lead to depression, poor sleep quality, impaired decision making, accelerated cognitive decline, poor
Hey, you, with the earbuds in their ear. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? When I was trying to get my podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcast. I like to upload my episodes directly to the app and then promote. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it. Go to anchor.fm/start to join me in the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
Cardiovascular function, impaired immunity, all of these things. And some of those are because of the bad choices that we're making in terms of our bodies. So I think the best thing right now to combat the virus itself and to combat the anxiety that is obviously going to come from this isolation is really just, I know it sounds cliche, but self-care. And not just self-care in the sense of I'm going to light some candles and take a bath. That's great if that helps you, but really being mindful of what is best for your body. Because I remember back when I first started on this journey, I told myself for years, well, you go to the gym. I don't understand why I still feel, I go to the gym and it's just not working. But I was that person that would go to the gym and kind of, tread along on the treadmill a little bit for 5 minutes or so, just kind of walking on the treadmill, or I'd watch a YouTube video and do a little workout or something, but there was no real commitment there. There was no accountability. It wasn't something that I did regularly. It was just very sporadic. And I realized that I'd been convincing myself for so long that this was normal. See, I was told when I was born that I'd never be able to walk. So for me to just be able to go and walk on the treadmill, I was like, okay, well, I proved them wrong. I'm walking. I knew better. I knew I wasn't taking care of myself. I knew deep inside that I could do better. And I think the best thing that's come out of this for me, out of this this time of social isolation and reflection, is really taking a step back and saying, how can I do better? And that's not saying you have to be perfect. That's not saying that right now you need to be a completely organic vegan that never, that works out an hour a day. I'm absolutely not saying that. But just take a step back and think, how can you give your brain right now the best chance possible? And I'm telling you, it's not by eating the pint of ice cream. It's not by binging the Netflix show. And it's certainly not by being on social media for 3, 4, 5 hours a day. So just what does that mean to you? And I'm saying take care of your body and thus your mind. There is a connection there. If even physically, the vagus nerve that starts at the base of the brain and goes down the neck and across the chest and branches through the gut, there's very physical connections there as far as how our body and our mind are related. And I always say it's super interesting to me that people don't realize that the brain is a body part, like it is an organ in the body. It is connected. And
We treat the two of them as though they're separate.
We do. It's funny because when people will say, well, are you talking about mental health or physical health? And I understand, where they're coming from because they both do have their own importances, but I'm saying, well, health in general. And I mentioned serotonin a minute ago. I think that's something that's super important because people always think serotonin is the happy hormone. So they think, oh, it's in the brain. Actually, 95% of serotonin is in the gut. So if we're not taking care of ourselves on a physical level, and we're not making sure that not only are we getting, nutritious food, but we're digesting that food, because if you're not digesting, it's not really doing any good. We're doing ourselves a complete disservice, because the gut acts as the hormonal messenger that regulates like whether we feel satiated, cravings, digestion, nutrient absorption, whatnot. The brain is more of an inhibitory neurotransmitter that regulates the mood, anxiety, stress, focus, memory, but they're so very connected. They're so very connected. I remember when I would frequently have panic attacks, and that's not something that I struggle with so much now, but I used to have panic attacks all the time. And I'd notice a difference in my digestion. When I'd have a full-blown panic attack, you have to go to the bathroom, whether you have to pee or whatever, you have to go to the bathroom almost within minutes. And anybody that's ever had a panic attack can tell you that, which makes sense because it sets that fight or flight response into motion. That's being triggered. Yeah. Which makes the body start changing to prepare to fight or run. There are actual changes that go on in the body when we're flooding ourselves with the stress chemicals, when we're not giving ourselves proper nutrients. There's physical changes that are going on. We always say, he was so scared he crapped himself. Well, That's a physical reaction to an emotional trigger. When somebody is drinking, and somebody gets drunk, and we realize that what they're putting in their mouth is affecting their mind. We're realizing that. We very, very much realize the alcohol is going into the body. It's going into the bloodstream. It affects the mind. It affects your thoughts. I know I get depressed if I drink, because alcohol is a depressant, and it'll feel good for a minute. I struggled with addiction for quite some time, and it always feels good in the minute, doesn't it? It always feels good to give into that craving, to give into that cigarette or that alcohol, or in my case, it was cocaine or the food. It feels good, but is it going to help you in the long run?
Same thing with social media. Social media has that same addiction. A lot of individuals, and I think you spoke on this earlier in the show, they're addicted. Look, I had to throw my phone across to the side of the room so I could focus on what it is I'm doing, because you just get used to it. And then you're like, all right, well, I need to know what's going on. Do you need to really know what's going on? And half of the time, it's not even what's really going on. It's opinion or somebody's, I'll just say opinion on things that people want to throw out there. It's their thoughts that they're throwing out. It's not all fact. So
let my Missouri self come in for a second when I'm like, look, y'all, I grew up in the 90s. I was very much a 90s kid. And my dad was unfortunately terminally ill. So it was very important that the doctors and stuff were able to get a hold of us quickly, and that, my mom could get a hold of me quickly. But guess what I didn't freaking have? A cell phone. Guess what never happened? The world never came to an end. There was never any health issues that we weren't able to handle in a reasonable amount of time and everything. The sky never fell. I mean, there were never pieces of the sky that just fell in my head and said, "Oh my God, you didn't respond to that email in 45 seconds." I remember reading somewhere that the average email is responded to within seconds. I'm sitting there going, you're lucky if you get a response same day. For me at this point, I used to have a very serious. Yeah,
I'm very familiar.
I used to have a super serious problem with my relationship with my phone and with social media and stuff. And I will say I'm still more connected than I would like to be, but I got to a point where I started doing healthy things. I actually made a YouTube video about this not too long ago, just for some of my close pack members, as I call them, my wolf cubs, my followers and stuff. I made a video that kind of went over action steps that you can take for breaking that addiction. And right now is an excellent time to work on that, because I assure you there's plenty of things that you can do even if you're around your house. You could be cleaning, you could be reading a book, you could even be, if you're going to watch something that's going to help you grow, because growth is what leads to happiness, not scrolling mindlessly on social media and looking at everybody's problems all the time. What really comes out of that? Like, one of my secrets of adulthood, one of the things that I've learned, there's never anything good in the comment section. That is my secret to adulthood. There is never anything of worth in any comment section on any social media site, be it YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. Never anything of use.
You actually started on to something which was a great segue to my next question, which was, what can we do to help ourselves and others during this time of emotional uncertainty? And you started with the cleaning and, taking time out for yourself. What are some potent things that you think, like if you were going to give individuals directly, like you say, your pack members or anybody, 3 potent points of advice, what would you give them dealing with this situation right now?
Well, we already went over taking care of yourself, taking care of your body. We've already talked about that and the importance and how important it is to make sure you're getting your nutrients, make sure that you're taking care of your physical and mental health right now. So that is obviously my number one thing. Number 2, even if we can't be connecting one-on-one, to just stay connected to our packs, whatever that means to us, staying connected virtually, checking in on each other. We can still definitely help send a letter.
Right.
I saw the postman the other day. I know that they're still out and about. Write a letter. Take time to really check in. You can download apps like Marco Polo, which allow you to send little video clips to each other. Just staying connected to people right now. Even if you have to isolate and you can't be around them physically, it's an awesome time to get creative and see how you can stay connected. I know I actually just started a Facebook group for my wolf cubs so that people can stay connected during this time. And that is my big, that is a big thing, because even if you're an introvert, there's definitely lots of ways to stay connected. If you don't really feel like staying connected to friends and family, at least find some kind of positive group. Let me be clear, positive group. This isn't all of your conservative friends or all of your liberal friends that are just going to bitch about politics all day, pardon my French. This is the people that are going to build you up. These are the people that are going to help you grow and encourage you. And I mean, even if, for me, I have been learning French for the last couple of years, and staying connected to either other natives or other learners. I can do that online. I can, go over on the Duolingo has a little bit community. I can go download, there's apps like italki where you can connect with other natives that want to learn English, and they are willing, it's completely free. They're willing to teach you, their native language. So this is an awesome time just to kind of grow. And even if you're not wanting to do anything super serious with it, I have an article on my website that I had written for a language learning blog that I never realized how huge of a skill language learning is, because it really helped with my anxiety, actually, because it's forcing you to think differently. It's forcing your brain to think differently and to be more mindful. And mindfulness is kind of my last bit of advice. The biggest thing, probably the most important skill that I learned while dealing with anxiety and depression and going through my healing process. And I just want to reiterate, it's a process. There are still, I just need to curl up in a ball and cry and listen to Linkin Park for 30 minutes and, eat my dark chocolate, but be mindful. If you do need to take, and have a little treat or have a little time, as I was saying earlier, to check, the news or whatever, be mindful of it. Whatever you're doing, whatever steps you're taking right now, just do it with mindfulness. So if you're checking your social media, say, okay, right now I am checking this so that I can know what is going on. I'm not checking this to learn about who's having a baby right now or how many celebrities and how they're handling this. I want to know the news, or I want to talk to my best friend, and that is why I'm doing this right now. If you are having, some kind of a treat, you just need, I know sometimes I need that little bit of dark chocolate or my smoothie or whatever. And if anybody comes in the way between me and that, they're probably going to die.
I know about that. I have sisters. I have almost lost my life a few times because of that.
Yeah. You just stand back and you just throw the nibs of chocolate at them and say, I surrender.
Just go.
But, you know, eating mindfully, saying, okay, I'm going to give myself this little bit of chocolate right now. But I'm not going to eat the whole bar. If you are wanting to watch a series, unfortunately, the new season of Lucifer has been postponed, and I'm pretty sad because I was looking forward to watching that through the hot Arizona summer. But if you're going to watch a show or whatever, you know, watch your show and enjoy it. Don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel guilty about the chocolate. But just be very mindful about what you're doing and how it's affecting you. So if you're watching a show and you notice yourself just starting to feel guilty that you're being lazy, or you feel that the content of the show or whatever is just making you feel really anxious or really unsettled, stop watching it. If the food is not making you feel good, stop eating it. If you're partaking in habits that you know aren't good for you, and you very much feel when things are good for you. Nobody smokes a cigarette and says, man, this cigarette's so healthy. You know what's good for you and what's not. And just being mindful of that right now is super important.
In other words, it sounds as though you're saying, just be kind to yourself.
Yes. And others. I mean, there are a lot of other people right now that are really struggling with this physically and emotionally, and just staying connected. I think one of the greatest things we can do is give back or give to others. And this is an awesome time. I remember I don't remember the exact quote, but I remember Mr. Rogers would say that when things like this happen, when there's a crisis, look for the good. And I take that one step further and say, be the good. Why can't we be the good during this time of crisis? Yes, look for those hashtag silver linings. I know that's a big hashtag right now. And I love how people are doing that, because yes, we have this situation, and no, it's not a good situation by default. I mean, there's people dying, there's a lot of change happening in our lives, but the dolphins are coming back to the Venice canals. I thought that was really awesome. Air pollution has plummeted drastically. This is an opportunity for us to spend more time with our kids or our family. This is the opportunity for us to spend more time with ourselves and really reflect on, how can I move forward? How can I grow from this? How can I take this and, like I said before, come out a better person? The media, as you said, has a huge effect on how we process and relate to our emotions. And it is the media's job to keep us afraid. The media, if they don't keep us afraid, we're not going to keep watching. Right?
I totally agree.
I'm totally not getting paid to spam this, but the comedian I was talking about, his name is Ryan George, and he did this video, I think it's called Bad News Network or something to that effect. But if you just look up Ryan George Bad News, it'll come up on YouTube. And it was so hysterical, because it's just, it really blew out of proportion what everybody's doing. The oh my God, if you walk outside, you're going to get stabbed and you're going to die. It's just,
it's totally over embellished.
Yes, but it shows us what's really going on, because this is what's happening.
And you're touching on something right there, which is one of the best things or best healing, which is laughter. 100%
yes.
Laughter is been proven to help heal so many things. Amanda, thank you for coming on to the show. I couldn't have asked for a better guest to come and talk about these issues that we're all facing right now. Can you do me a favor? Can you let the people know out there where they can find you? I know we're talking about social media and all these things, but can you let them know your social media and your email so people can look up the positive things that you're doing?
Yeah, I think that it's important, because I'm not saying in any means to not get on social media. I'm just saying let's be mindful of what we're doing on there. So you can find me on my website, which is www.amandawebsterhealth.com, and that will have a link to my social media accounts. Or you can find me on Instagram at Amanda Webster Health. If you sign up for my newsletter, you will get an exclusive invitation to my pack. So you can be one of my wolf cubs, where I have a lot of motivation. And that's kind of a more personal setting. It's a Facebook group, so it's a little bit more of a personal setting. I do encourage anyone that needs to reach out during this time. If you're struggling emotionally, or if you just need someone to talk to, I'm absolutely open. I might not get back to your email right away, but I promise I will read it, and I promise I'll get back to it as soon as I can. And then even if at any other time when we're not having a complete pandemic, coronavirus situation. I always look forward to talking and connecting with people, hearing their stories, hearing their struggles, hearing their successes. It's really awesome experience to connect to people.
And Amanda, you also, I wanted to just mention this, you're also a yogi, am I correct? Or you practice yoga, and you learned from one of my favorite individuals, Diamond Dallas Page.
Dang, yes, I did. I'm a DDP yoga instructor. I have other training as well, but that's probably my most proud of all of my yoga teacher training. I have about 500 hours accumulated, but yes, I am a DDP yoga instructor.
I got to give you a high five, because that was one of my favorite pro wrestlers back in the day. And when I read your bio, you were like, that was somebody that you looked up to. I was like, she just deserves a high five just on that alone.
But you got to give yourself a self high five, right?
You know
River
what?
Dallas
of course.
Dallas is a really great individual. I love his program. I love being an instructor. It was a super proud accomplishment for me to connect with him and that community.
Amanda, thank you for coming on to the De La Fit podcast. We thank you so much for all of your time and energy and discussing this with us. Please have a great day and be safe.
Thank you. You too, and all of your listeners as well.
Hey everyone, we hope that you're enjoying the interview thus far. We'd just like to take some quick time out to remind everybody to like, follow, share, and subscribe. With every like, follow, share, and subscription, it helps the De La Fit podcast to grow. And the more we grow, the more information we can bring to you, the listener. So please, take some time out, like, follow, share, and subscribe. Thank you. I'd like to take the time out to thank Amanda for coming to the podcast, giving us the benefit of not only her education, but her experience, her life experience, and to give us tools which will allow us to practice a more balanced form of social distancing. You know, this is, I don't know for how long, our new form of life. This is what we have to do, says the powers that be, to survive. And honestly, I don't want anybody out there to take it as a negative. And there's a lot of negativity out there, but I want us to try to see the positives in this. I've said it before, it's almost like a reset. It's almost like the creator is saying, hey, all those things that you were taking for granted, all those privileges, all those things that you were doing when you weren't really focusing on yourself. It's time to focus on yourself, children. Time to take that time back. And I'm going to do something which is going to force not only you in one specific place, but the world to slow down, to take stock. It's the time to actually start practicing 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health. It's a truth. It's a truth that we all must come to. Because for a long time, I feel that humanity, we have been avoiding the truth. The truth is that we have been going and pushing and not paying attention to the true things that matters. Yes, these are the things that we are or should be looking at now. With the virus out there can come so much. You take the good with the bad. I choose to try to take the positives out of this situation, which is the fact of now, I might not be able to go as many places, but because we still have the internet, because we still have books, because we still have cell phones, let's use them for the proper resources. And yes, there will be times that we're going to get sucked into the media black hole of negativity and all the other things that can come with it. But if we take the tools that Amanda has so graciously helped us develop today, we can actually use these devices, use these tools to do so much better. I wish everybody out there happiness, health, safety. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. We need it in these times. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us here at the De La Fit Podcast. You can reach us at www.delafitpodcast.com. We are on Facebook at De La Fit Podcast. We are on Instagram at DE_LA_Fit Podcast. We are on Twitter. You can find us at De La Fit Podcast. That's right. We are everywhere. Please subscribe. If you want us to get in contact with any of the guests, if you have a question, please leave your information. You can hit us up at dayla13@gmail.com. As always, be safe, be kind, be good to yourself. Peace.
You've been listening to the De La Fit Podcast. Ta-ta for now.